Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. Now I feel incredibly lucky today to be able to show you something very, very special. I hold in my hands the Varjo Aero. Now I've been lucky enough to be able to play with this for just over a month, so I've got some real extensive thoughts and feelings. It's a fantastic piece of kit, so I'm so excited to tell you about it. Right, first, if you don't know Varjo, they've been going since 2016. They're a Finnish company that have been in the VR, AR, XR space since then, creating incredible products, always at the bleeding edge, but up to now they've been selling them just to businesses. So a high price, usually with a subscription model, and people have been crying out for a consumer version. Well, now we have it. It's the Aero, it's going to be released very soon, and I have had great fun playing with it. This is kind of like a professional grade experience for a consumer. The tech in here is spectacular. I'm going to kick off with the visuals. The resolution of this headset is 2880 by 2720 pixels per eye. The clarity is incredible. Up to now, I've been playing mostly with the Quest and the HP Reverb G2. The G2 has been known as the king of clarity. The mother of dragons has arrived to dethrone the king. This is next level clarity. There's a few reasons for that clarity. So most of the big name headsets have been using Fresnel lenses up till now. You recognise those because they're the kind of ringed lenses. You see like outgoing rings, like a sort of tree stump through the lens, and that's the way they sort of augment the picture that's coming in, so you can see it with that sort of real life perspective. Well, Varjo haven't chosen to work with those. What they've done instead is they've made custom made aspheric lenses. They're completely smooth lenses, and it has an incredible impact on the visuals. You get none of the sort of God rays and reflections that you get so often with Fresnel lenses. It's always amazed me that Oculus have opted for the white logo on a black background. It's the first thing that you turn on your headset, and it's the worst part of the whole experience. You're immediately greeted by this awful God ray. The white is sort of blooming out all across the screen, and it looks terrible until the next picture comes up. You've got some standard colours and you're able to adjust. Now that wouldn't occur on a headset like this because this change in lenses just completely stops that reflection and things look so much better. I was blown away the first time I put this on my head. I didn't even have to fire up a game because I could instantly see just from the text on the screen and the sort of menu options, things were looking incredible. It was so crisp, it was so clear and so easy to work with. Now the FOV is quoted at 115 degrees horizontally. In my experience, it's roughly on par with most of the good headsets I've worked with. It's not a real extreme wide FOV headset. They could have opted for that. I'm kind of glad they didn't, because the fact that they've kept it to a reasonably standard FOV means that the pixel density is incredible and it really adds to that clarity that I'm talking about. Now you notice a couple of things the first time you fire up this headset that really pull it apart from the crowd. You hear this sort of whirring kicking off from the headset, and that's the active cooling kicking in. It sounds really, really aggressive as it first fires up. That sound calms down, but the impact of the cooling is incredible throughout the playthrough. You really get a much less foggy experience. If you're used to playing with standard VR headsets in the colder months, you get used to taking your headset off, giving it a wipe to clear the mist and jumping back in until the headset's warmed up enough to sort of adjust to the room's temperature. I've barely ever had to do that with this headset because it's really doing an incredible job in keeping it cool. The next thing that stands out is when you pop it on your head, you're suddenly greeted by this sort of as the screens kind of zip in and track in on the centre of your eyes. Now that is where things really get interesting. So what it's doing there is the automatic IPD. So in the past, it's been down to us to correct our headsets' visuals for our own IPD. By IPD, I mean interpupillary distance. That's the distance between each of your pupils in the middle, with the aim being to get your pupils right in the centre of those lenses for the clearest quality. Now this is doing the job for you because it's got inbuilt eye tracking, and it sort of zips in on your eyes and makes sure you're looking at the clearest point. Now the lenses physically move to get in the correct position. In the past, where you've had something like a Quest has the three options, the G2 has a little slider, the Rift did it digitally. It's been very tricky because you've never been sure if you're in the right position. I know with the G2, I'm continually having a little play just to see if can I get things a little bit better. And you never need to worry about that with this because you know from the off it's completely perfect. And they didn't leave the magic there, so not only do they lock the lenses into the perfect position, they then begin to track your eyes. So the first time you put it on, you greet it with this little animation where you get a green dot on the screen and you have to look at it. It then starts bouncing around the screen and you follow it with your eyes. It takes about 2-3 seconds. That is calibrating the eye tracking. The headset then uses inbuilt foveated rendering, so it focuses the rendering of the clearest picture on where your eye is looking. Now I thought that's going to be really tough because your eyes move incredibly quick and it's going to need to continually adjust that to get it correct. But it actually refreshes at 200 Hz to ensure that you're always getting the clearest picture, and I found this to make an enormous difference. If you don't take the time to calibrate that, it won't use the foveated rendering, it will just render standardly with the clearest bit in the middle. It also means they can run incredibly high resolutions without tasking your PC quite so much, because they don't need to focus the same clarity right across the picture, it's where your eye's looking. It works using Steam base station tracking, so you want to set up your lighthouses. It means it's compatible with any controllers that are in that ecosystem. That could include Vive ones. If you wanted to use those, then you're a maniac. It also means you can use Valve Knuckles, that's what I've been working with. Really big impact because they're incredible controllers, probably the gold standard. It's really adds to the experience, so awesome that they can be paired up. It does mean that there could be an extra cost if you don't already own those bits of tech, but they're great investments and they work with so many other units, so worth having. Speaking of things that aren't included, it doesn't have inbuilt audio or an inbuilt mic. That was a surprise to me, but it meant I sort of worked with what I had, and I had a really rewarding experience. So I tried standard wired in-ear earphones, I tried AirPods Pro, tried over-ears and sort of studio over-ears. I had quite a good experience because some of those are quite a big jump over the experience you usually get from other headsets like sort of the Quest or something like that. And often I would just revert to using what is built into the Quest because it's there and I'm lazy. I put it on, it's good to go. And possibly my experience suffers because of that. If they had included some sort of headband audio like that, I probably would have just left it and my experience would have been much sourer. So I'm quite glad that they didn't in the end. I do know that they're shipping the unit with a short wired earphone with an inbuilt mic, so if you don't already own something, you're going to get some way into it. I should think that would be pretty good, but if you've got something better, maybe you want to run with that. Now comfort with this unit is incredible. So it uses this kind of halo style headband. It's got two adjustment points. You've got one on the top here, sort of screws down, screws up. And on the back there, extend it out so you can pop it on and then tighten it up once it's on your head. It was slightly confusing the first time I put it on, but it makes it really clear what the correct position is because there's kind of only one way you can put it on. If you have it a little bit too high, when it starts to calculate your IPD, you'll get a message saying the headset's too high, pull it down a little bit. And it means you're kind of always set up perfectly. When the HP Reverb G2 launched, there were a few people that were moaning about the visuals. And after a little bit of time, it turned out that a large number of those guys just weren't putting the headset on in the right position, so their eyes were off center and they weren't seeing things in the ideal way. Now this completely removes that from the equation because you're kind of locked into just the one position. I find it incredibly comfortable. The materials are of really high quality. The headset itself is quite light. It's not like light to the point where it doesn't feel premium, but it's a nice sort of weight and it doesn't feel unbalanced. Once everything is on and you've tightened these up, it really feels locked in, so you can really sort of rattle your head. If you're playing any sort of fast-paced shooter, you can really turn without any risk of it moving, slipping, or sort of coming off. It's just not going to happen. It's really, really comfortable. I would say I can get much longer playtime playing with this than any of my other headsets because it's so much more comfortable. The active cooling helps it stay cool. The faceplate is a sort of wiped down sort of fake leather, very similar to the sort of VR cover style thing, so that's kind of perfect, and if it didn't have it I'd have looked for a replacement that got me to that. It's not wireless, so coming from the headset you've got this USB-C cable that goes to a small box which then has a power input and a DisplayPort input that connects to your PC. I'd say the cable is of a good quality. I always find the HP Reverb G2 cable to be a little bit thick and I always notice it when I'm playing. This is slightly less thick and a bit more malleable, so it's quite a nice experience to work with. So a little bit of my experience actually playing with it. It's completely compatible with your sort of Steam VR library, so I've been able to play quite a lot of games with it and I've really enjoyed it. It kind of brings a bit of a new lease of life to the games that you've played before. I did a complete replay through of Alex because it just felt completely different. I spent ages just staring at my hands and seeing these sort of visuals differently to how I usually would. They're so much brighter, the colours are fantastic. It's a dual mini LED screen setup. Mini LED, similar to what you've seen on the new iPad Pros. It's very similar to OLED quality, so the blacks are really black, the colours are really vibrant. It's not quite to the OLED standard, but it's very, very close. The colour quality really shines through on this unit. It's one of its standout points. So if you're a visual artist, any sort of creative, if you do any sort of 3D design, you're gonna love this unit. I even found that some of the lower fidelity games that you wouldn't expect to notice such a drastic difference with look completely different. So when I was playing sort of pixel shooters and things like that, they just look incredible because all the lines are so clear, so defined. It's like a new experience. I absolutely loved it. So Varjo make a few claims in their marketing promotion for this. They say it's a generational leap. I'd say it's a pretty fair comment. It really does feel like they've pushed things forward quite significantly. They claim edge-to-edge clarity. Now that's always been a sour point in the past because people have made these claims and things haven't really lived up to it. I know the G2 got a lot of criticism because things looked fantastic in the middle, but in those sort of corners and those edges things just got blurry and blurrier. And I would say this really does improve things. The foveated rendering helps, and that pancake lens, those sort of flat lenses really add to it and take away that blurriness. A few other talking points. So the fact that it kind of drops you in on your desktop PC and you can jump straight into Steam is awesome. You don't need to worry about finicky things like Windows Mixed Reality, you're not running through the sort of Oculus Home or anything like that. It's all really simple, exactly what you want to go to, no faffing around. Now powering a headset with this kind of tech is never going to be easy, and it isn't in this case. The minimum specs that your PC requires start at a RTX 3080. Now that does make things a little bit difficult. They've been really hard to get hold of. I'm lucky, I've got a 3090 and it powered through things with no trouble at all. Hopefully we're starting to get to a better position and graphics cards start coming through. I would love for people to be able to get involved in this tech if they'd like to. Now if you don't have a graphics card quite that powerful yet but would love to get the headset, it might not mean you can't run it at all. You can lower the settings and get a great experience. I would say that dropping the settings from highest to high still gave an incredibly good experience, but were much easier on your PC. Right, and all that brings us to the price. Now bleeding edge tech like this is never going to come cheap. Varjo are looking for €1,990. Is it worth that kind of money? Very difficult to say, and it would depend on your situation. I can say that I have had an incredible time with it. This is very possibly the start of the next generation of virtual reality. I hope it pulls a lot more people onto the PC side of things and we're moving forward to a very positive place. I'm very excited for where things are going. Thank you so much for sticking with me through all that. If you've enjoyed this video, then a like would be fantastic. If you want to see more content like this in the future, then a sub to the channel would be awesome. I will see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.